our 30 days of PM challenge. I'm Shagun from the Nonsense Lab, and here we talk about product management and a typical day in the life of a product manager, right? And things that are involved with building products and scaling them further. So, the topic for today is validating your ideas and building MVPs. MVPs are minimum viable products. Essentially, these are your starting or building blocks when getting started with building, releasing, and managing a product, right? A lot of the times you have an idea in your mind that you want to build solutions for, and in essence, to build these solutions, you can't just put in all your resources into just an hypothesis a or a feature or a product that you feel like will do the job. A lot of times you have to look at the market, you have to look at the user persona that you're dealing with, and if the value proposition for a solution really is required, and if required, how do I match the user needs with the problem statement and solve for that, right? So it's not really uh, a, a a straightforward process where you just think of an idea and go build it the other day. You can do that, I mean, up to you. But a lot of the time, experienced product managers and product leaders, what they essentially do is when they have a big feature to implement or add within their product, or build something from scratch as well, right? MVPs are mostly at the stage where you are starting something from scratch and you need to validate whether there is an actual need for the product in the market, right? So a lot of the times this involves prototyping, it involves measuring success, it involves building smaller smoke tests that can help you understand, okay, if I build a product, is there an audience interested to it? If there is an audience interested with it, how can I then scale it further? And actually, are people willing to pay for the product that I'm building, right? Once you have all the stages of things figured out, you can then prioritize and look at what needs to be done further to help the customer, right? Or to sell them the product and scale your business from there and have a successful product launch. Uh, Multiple organizations do this. If you have even startups, I mean, most startups build an MVP and start from essentially a small prototype, and from the prototype they start to see if people actually engage, or if there is a need for that in the market, and then scale from there further, right? So I have a small diagram here which talks about how the product cycle and the MVP cycle in essence builds. MVP is also your precursor to PMF. So a lot of the times you get started with the initial times when you think of an idea, you build a prototype, you draw something on pen and paper, and see within your audience or people you meet if they are interested in actually looking and are interested in the product at all, right? So once you have that figured out, you can start looking at smaller smoke tests, right? After engagement and all of that is done, you look at building something very simple and straightforward, right? You have multiple examples of this. You have examples of Airbnb and how, in order to validate the idea of Airbnb, the founders essentially put their own property for, I mean, as a host for guests to arrive and, I mean, facilitate. So there are countless examples. You have examples with Twitter, also with Uber, and how they got started and built their initial MVP. A lot of the times MVPs are testing grounds for you if the product will actually get some retention and get some traction from the users. A recent example of that will also be Perplexity, which is like an AI interface, but a better alternative over ChatGPT and other sort of platforms that you can ask questions and get answers for, right? Perplexity essentially started with analyzing Twitter feeds and Twitter threads. So they built a simple platform where you can ask about Twitter posts of a particular user, or ask anything related to Twitter from their APIs. And then they scaled it further by providing the best search experience, I mean, according to me, and how they can essentially synthesize information from multiple models, multiple sources, and give you the best output, right? They have multiple features, but yeah, even for a in the latest terms, if you think of it, Perplexity is a great example of how they started out with a simple format and simple a way to query and get results, and then scale it further and compete with the likes of ChatGPT, Bard, and Microsoft Copilot and others, right? So MVPs are that stage of you testing grounds and making sure things are actually interesting enough for people to take a look and essentially get some indicator of they are willing to pay for a service like this over the longer run once it improves and grows. And from the PMF you start into product market fit, where once the product grows and scales further, you see the product actually solving for market needs. And if there is a connect here or a click between the product and also the market, you call it product market fit. And it's essentially your phase where you start scaling and seeing adoption from multiple customers once they are pitched about your product or hear about, or customers hearing about your product. So from there on, your scale and essentially the hockey stick curve sort of starts and grows from there to build multiple products and multiple features within your product to scale and grow the business from there on. So this essentially is what a typical product life cycle looks like, and where PMF starts. It's very in the early stages when you are validating your idea and growing from there. A lot of times people do mistakes when building PMFs. When trying to achieve PMFs and building these MVPs. So, for example, this is a great image explaining how you should not treat PMF as, where if you try to build just a single tire and show and explain users value about it, they won't really understand what they have to do with this piece of rubber, right? And essentially, PMF does not really happen if you build a tire, give a platform, and then just have the car but not the roof. Uh, and eventually, this is essentially the process for a failed product. But for you, for the likes of you to succeed, you have to figure out when you start with tire as an idea or a wheel as an idea, what's the simplest way to help people and make sense of uh, and provide wheel as a way to commute. You build a platform, you build a skateboard, you build a tricycle, you build a bicycle, you build a motorcycle, and then a car. So as you see the progression of how from small to big it eventually begins, this is how you have to treat your idea. A lot of times at the beginning, user won't really have a lot of positive output. They will have some feedback, but it wouldn't really solve the purpose completely. But as you go from one step to the other, you see the change in the behavior of the users and how they feel, how they can feel the value out of the product that is being built, right? So this is eventually the process of MVPs, and what they are meant to do is to get users to a place where they finally find value out of your product, and your part of the process is to figuring out ways to enable value using your core problem statement that you're trying to solve for, right? So this essentially is a great example of how to use MVPs and how to not think about MVPs always. Even though you are building an MVP and just testing things out where there might be rough edges, you always have to think about all the other aspects involved, right? You can't really just have like a great product but not really good marketing, because no one will hear about the product, which eventually will lead to no users actually onboarding and using. So you have to do a lot of things, not to their best potential, but even to their minimum best, right, that you can deliver such that you have some traction and some value that can be seen by the user. So a great image for explaining that is this: don't really think about the functionality a lot. It has to be functional, obviously, but instead of going it step by step, you have to do a lot of things at parallel. You have to make it functional, you have to make it reliable, you have to make it usable. The UX should also be good, and then design is essentially your top pillar, which the way it looks, the way it feels, and how the user interacts, right? It, needless to say, it doesn't really have to be perfect, right? You have to make it such that it's doing the bare minimum at all of these levels, and not really, if you just keep focusing on the functional side of things, it will probably take you a long time to even hit PMF, right? And making sure a lot of these things are tackled out later on. And this will eventually lead you to the cycle of just trying to achieve the best possible and perfect product instead of actually a functional and usable product to your end customers, leaving a lot of insights on the table, right? So you wouldn't really have the ability to hear unless you focus on all these things in parallel and do that during your MVP stage. So don't do the first part of things where only focusing on the functional side. Focus on all the other sides, but make parallel progress parallelly and grow from there. So this is how you can build and validate your PMFs. And as we talked, PMFs have to meet the user needs and also what your value proposition is, right? So if I as a user am looking at carpooling services, if you are in the market trying to build something to solve for my problem of carpooling and making that easier, my requirements of how a carpooling service needs is my needs are should also eventually meet with what the product a user is looking for, right? So the value proposition and the user needs have to meet. There has to be a connect at least in some of these values for the user to at least take a look at, right? And go about exploring it. So a great example of this is this diagram, which talks about the value proposition, what your product can offer, what are the gain creators, what are the pain relievers that your product has, what are the products and services you offer through the product, right? A simple example for that would be Park Plus. Park Plus is a service. They have uh, a smart parking, they have community parking and residential parking services where you can manage parking spaces, you can manage entry exits, you can manage the life cycle of your car through not just the parking side of things but also the life cycle of your own car through the product, right? You can look at do fast tag recharges and all the other things related to your car, look at insurances, look at other services that a car typically needs. So a simple example for car plus Park Plus users is managing their cars, getting things, all the things related to their car at one place, also managing their parking needs, looking for parking spaces and availing those parking spaces. And the same thing is also offered by the product. So uh, to begin with, during an MVP stage, a lot of these things have to be clicking. At least the pain relievers and the products and services, right? These have to click between what pains the customer you really have and how you are relieving them, right? So this is a typical example of how a a typical value proposition customer profile journey looks like and how you map that. And a simple example of that when with respect to Uber is use I mean they offer variety of cabs, they have the passenger mobile app, they give you discounts as your products and services. And similarly, why would a user pay for is because of the variety of cabs they offer, the jobs that the payment they can have, the need to not wait too long to even book a cab. You could book a cab whenever you want, and they can also control the ride, right? The experience, the cost for that ride, and choose from the options available. And the pain it relieves is they have in the current space, they have bad drivers, they have issues with payment for a cab service, and they always have to book things in advance and have to plan all of these things. But on the other side, with an app like Uber, you get an ETA, you get real-time riders available within your location that you can accept. The riders can accept and reject, and you can then avail the services you want and choose from the options, right? And this allows you this essentially is matching a lot of the products and services offer and the jobs that a user wants the app or an app product to do for them, and relieving a series of pains, which essentially builds the gains and the gain creators within the product and for the user as well, right? So this is how you have to think when building products and when building MVPs to begin with. And that essentially is part of the process of understanding the user needs, growing from there, and building features that a user really needs to solve for, right? So start with the user persona, understand who the user persona would be, who will use your MVP product, right? It can be as simple as just a pen and paper diagram to get interest and find interest from users. Talk to them, and are you really willing, do you think something like this you would try out and would use? They'll probably have some responses. Take that, be like a always be listening to your users, talk to users, look at online portals, online forums, get a lot of insight from there, Talk to people around your community, be like a scientist, right? Always hear, always observe, always take insights, and take in information like a sponge, and experiment with that information, right? And see what hits, what does not hit, and build a product around that. A lot of times your own hypothesis can be challenged during just this information gathering and exploration phase, right? And from there you can grow and iterate and improve your uh, product offering, as well as the problem statement and the area that you're area of business you're trying to operate in, right? So understand the user persona, understand the users you are dealing with, build the value proposition and customer profile map. Try to map a lot of these things, and what pain problems are you trying to relieve, what jobs are you trying to do for the user, and where can the user really feel and find the gains over the existing process, right? There's also another process of the delta 4, right, from Kunal Shah, which was basically a model from him on how you can validate your startup ideas and startup problems, and anything that provides value greater than delta 4 is essentially a product that can change the existing habit of users and grow and help them transition from the existing process to the new process that you have built. So if three out of the four criterias are met, you have the delta 4 achieved, and you actually can push towards building that product further and further. I'll attach a resource related to the delta 4 theory and the way to look at that to build your products, right? And look at assumptions, have assumptions, whatever assumptions you have, try to validate those, right? So you can use a simple format like, we believe that car owners will, in the case of carpooling, will, have the format of, we believe X will do X if we create the product description. And the way we will validate this assumption is, we will know our assumption is validated when a metric or a criteria for you to actually count the assumption being successful or actually being valid. So in a simple case of using this format would be, we believe that car owners will accept the drives from other carpoolers if we create a platform for them to find verified rides who are taking the same route as them. And we will know our assumption is validated when we see at least 50 car owners in an X location in 1 month have crossed like 500 rides per month, right, or similar to that within your platform, and the rating of the platform is over 8% or 8.5 out of 10 by the end of the month. So this is how you can create an assumption, know how to validate that assumption, and make sure you have a criteria to count it against, to actually making that assumption valid and building solutions and products on that assumptions, right? You can have multiple of these uh, assumptions created and validation criteria, and then build your minimal viable product, right? So out of all the assumptions, I feel like X and Y features need to be there for the user to actually even get started with using. Build X, prioritize what needs to be built, get feedback, talk to users, and build like a community around it to have real-time insights and grow from there, right? So this is how you can build your MVPs and divide your assumptions into validation criterias, have a feature set list, and prioritize, do we really need it? So is it a must have? Should we have this? Could we have this? And we won't have some parts of it built as part of the MVP, right? So this is how you can build, have some metrics to track by, and grow from there, right? So this essentially is talking about how you can build these MVPs, how you can grow from there and scale your idea, right? So if we come back to the resource, they talk about how, instead of thinking of how should we build it, I think we've talked this multiple times in various other streams, where the first step of any process is looking at the why, the what, the how, and when later on, right? A lot of the times we just start with can this product be built, how do we build this, and things like that, because we are wired that ways, right? Instead you should think of, should this product actually be built, right? If built, why? Then challenge, build these assumption theories and validate these, and then come to a criteria, and then eventually come to a conclusion and scale and improve from there, right? So there are stages to an MVP, how you can think of building this. There are smoke test, then you build like a prototype, you have like a concierge service where you as a user or as a product owner or product creator are guiding or supporting the end user to actually use, so essentially hand holding them to use the product and see if it solves a problem for them. Then you get like a to the Wizard of Oz stage where you can leave the user on their own to the platform so that they can experiment and explore the product themselves, where minimum input from the product creator is put in. So Wizard of Oz is that stage, and then you break away and let the users use it on their own, right, and get capture feedback from their own. So do like a smoke test to validate the problem and the solution. Do like a small prototype. After the prototype, do like a concierge, then do the Wizard of Oz stage, and then eventually the product breakaway of your MVP, right, and then put it out in the market and scale from there. So they are these are essentially a simple way is a simple way to test your hypothesis, test your ideas, and build a simple MVPs and minimum viable products by focusing on not just the functional side of things but also the design, the usability, the UX, and eventually the entire product as a whole, right? So do small things, do things in small chunks, and do all these at parallel and scale from there. So this is how you build an MVP. An MVP essentially is part of a product, early part of the product life cycle, where you have a prototype and you build these simple prototypes to test and validate your hypothesis and your ideas. So yeah, I think that's all about MVPs for today. We have examples here of Swiggy and how Airbnb launched their app, and essentially Swiggy essentially I mean, to begin with, offered coupons and payment options, but really did not have any tracking options when you deliver or I mean order food from their app. But that is how they prioritize what features do really people need. I mean, the basics are delivery and exploration of restaurants available within their location and ordering food from there, right? So this is how you build MVPs and scale and validate your hypothesis and scale the organization. So yeah, I think that covers it all about MVP and how to build MVPs, not like the first stage we see, but the later one where user actually sees value through while going through the process of using your product. So yeah, we'll see you tomorrow on another topic related to product management and go from there. Thank you. Have a great day.